I'm a university lecturer at the University of Alexandria, but for a number of years I worked at the Biblioteca in the Alexandria and Mediterranean Research Center, AlexMed, in a variety of roles, especially research, and this book is of course part of that research, but also as a translator, editor on a variety of publications and projects. So this book is one of several things which I did while I was working at the Biblioteca. What was noticed was that a lot of work or a lot of research has been done already on the Greeks, on the Italians and on other communities, but in actual fact next to nothing had been, in serious research had been done on the British. And in actual fact, the British over the centuries, it could be the British as a community or it could be individuals, had actually played quite a large role in the city. So this book is to fill that gap. Well, in actual fact, the British, if I summarize, they founded schools, key schools, we all know that. They built hospitals, they built churches, they built cemeteries, they built the first railway in Egypt and Africa. That was in 1858 between Alexandria and Cairo, and then from Cairo to Suez, and so forth. They built the tram line. The Alexandria tram line was built by the British. At the time, it wasn't a tram line, it was a train line. Okay, so, and I could continue. So there are many factors or structures or institutions in Alexandria which originate with the British, either the community or with individual British people. And you can find that even in some of the place names. The book covers a very long period of time, and that is what may surprise people, because if you talk about the British, people here may say, oh, the late 19th century or 1882, But actually, I go back to the 12th century. I go back to the 12th century, and it's more or less, each chapter is chronological, okay, right up to the period of the 1950s and early 60s, when all the foreigners had to leave, as you know, and that included the British, of course. So this is going back to medieval times. The first testimony I found was in 1165. 1165, a traveller from Spain, Benjamin of Tudela, came and found British ships, British merchants, not many, but they were there. So it's through the testimonies I find of memoirs, of biographies. I also spent a long time in archives, the British archives, that I was gradually able to accumulate this material. And then you can split it into the medieval period under the Mamluks and under the Ottomans until the arrival of the French. So this would be a big section of the book which deals with the merchants who came. They were mostly merchants. We don't have tourism like we have today, okay? There were pilgrims who were going to Jerusalem, so they would come across the Mediterranean to Alexandria and continue on to Jerusalem, and various other travelers. The first half of the 19th century and the links he had with the foreign merchants. I focus, of course, in my book on the British, because that's the topic of my book, okay? Muhammad Ali, when he took power eventually, he took all the land of Egypt as his own property. The Egyptian farmers, or fellahin, were forced to grow whatever he wanted to grow. Later it would become cotton, but it was also wheat, grain, and so on. This he would buy off them for next to nothing, and then he would sell it to the foreigners of different nationalities, French, British, whatever the nationalities were, and it was with this money that he intended to establish his empire and to develop Egypt. And this would bring more and more foreigners for his development project, and amongst those foreigners were many British people. However, I have to say that it has a 30-page bibliography, and it has an index of all the references when I mention Churchill, or I mention Montgomery, or I mention whatever. So for somebody doing academic research, it is a useful book. For students of history, especially Egyptian history or Middle Eastern history or Mediterranean history, it is interesting. But an educated tourist coming to visit would find it interesting, hopefully. And of course, anybody who's Alexandrian who's interested in the history of Alexandria hopefully would find it interesting.